Hi there, it's Angela here, and I'm back again for the next video in the menopause series that I'm making. Now, I decided to make these videos just to provide a bit of information to make it less daunting for women as they reach this stage of life, because this is something that we just don't talk about. It's like a big secret society. So I thought, why not share some information so that women, as they're coming into their perimenopause stage of life or moving through menopause, through the change, that they actually understand what's going on. Because I think when you know some of this info, it makes it a little bit easier to deal with and knowing how to manage the way that you're feeling. So in this video, I'm going to talk about hormones and the different hormones and how they change and what the impact of these changing hormones can have on your physical health. The very first hormone that I want to talk to you about is progesterone. Now, progesterone is generally the first hormone that starts to shift because progesterone is actually produced by the egg when we ovulate. So when the egg is released from the ovary, then it releases some progesterone, because progesterone is actually the hormone that continues to support the egg and then the embryo if it happens to get fertilized. Now, as you ovulate less and you have less eggs coming out, progesterone starts to come down. And the role of progesterone is really not only does it support an embryo as it grows in the first 3 months of pregnancy, what it does, it gives us a sense of calmness. And for any women who have been pregnant, if you can remember, the first 3 months you actually had a sense of calmness. And it's this hormone that has quite sedative effects, and it promotes restful sleep. It's also an anti-anxiety hormone. So when we start to get lower levels of this hormone, then we start to see that we get a few issues that might come up. And these can be things like problems sleeping, anxiety, a sense of not being calm at all. The other things that can occur is you can start feeling breast swelling and tenderness, mood swings, fuzzy thinking, irritability, fluid retention, bloating, and weight gain. Now, you might think, well, some of those symptoms sound very, very familiar. And they do, because they're also symptoms that many people associate with PMS, because it's not unusual for women to actually have low progesterone levels. It's actually very, very common. So these symptoms that are coming up don't just happen as you're in this perimenopause stage of life, but they can seem to be worse due to the state of our adrenal glands. I'll explain that shortly, the role the adrenal glands play. The next hormone that starts to shift after progesterone is actually surprisingly testosterone. So testosterone is the male hormone. Now, all women have testosterone, not in the same levels as what men do, but it does start to drop. And now the drop in testosterone isn't as great as the drop in progesterone. So the symptoms might be a little bit more subtle and we don't always notice them. But low levels of testosterone can lead to decreased sex drive, decreased sensitivity in your erogenous zones, decreased sense of well-being and energy, ambition, signs of depression, and thinning of the pubic hair. Now, once again, this can happen before you get to your perimenopause stage of life, because a lot of women actually don't have enough testosterone either, and that is quite often related to the amount of stress that we're under and our adrenal health. Once again, stay tuned for the adrenals. It's very, very important. So while progesterone and testosterone are starting to drop, initially the estrogen levels actually stay relatively high. And then over time, estrogen levels will start to drop off as well. And that's as your cycles get further and further apart, and you have less and less eggs available, and your ovulation really slows right down. So the last thing, and these are some of the symptoms that many women are, or they kind of associate with menopause, which is why everyone always just talks about estrogen levels dropping, but it's actually the last hormone to kind of really drop too much. But some of the symptoms that are associated with lowered estrogen levels are hot flushes, night sweats, vaginal dryness, low energy, low ambition, depression and mood swing, dizziness, mental confusion, urinary incontinence, recurrent urinary tract infections also can happen, and also a higher risk of vaginal infections, and a lot of that's due to the dryness that occurs. So once again, these symptoms can happen before you get to this perimenopausal stage of life if you actually have an issue with estrogen during your reproductive cycle. So all of these different symptoms that we associate with menopause can actually happen at any stage if you have hormone imbalances. But the key to most of these different, whether or not you experience these symptoms and how severe they are, is not really to do with estrogen, progesterone, or testosterone. It's more to do with your adrenal hormones. Next video, I'm going to come back and I'm going to talk to you all about the adrenal glands and the role that they play in whether or not you can breeze through menopause or whether or not you're probably going to struggle, and the reason why many women these days truly struggle. So stay tuned for the next video, because I'm going to share with you the thing that most people aren't talking about when it comes to hormones and menopause. I'll be back soon. From my heart to yours, infinite love and gratitude. Bye.